How do you know a Frenchman's been in your backyard?
I'm French, okay?
Your garbage cans are empty and your dog's pregnant.
22.
Piss up a rope.
What?
It's not the secret knock.
I forget the secret knock. Let me in.
Run. Let me catch my breath. I ran all the way from my house. I ran all the way home. Come on, you guys listen to me. This is bus. Come on. Sorry. Okay, forget it.
It's recording.
I tell you nothing.
Okay. What's up, you fat ones?
Oh.
Homie Squawk's back with another movie squawk. This time we did the movie Stand By Me. A movie about four dudes. And there's four of us.
Four guys being dudes.
Four dudes being guys.
Oh my god.
This movie was directed by Rob Reiner. What are you doing? And it stars Will Wheaton, River Phoenix, Corey Feldman, and Jerry O'Connell. There's more people, but they're unimportant, so
Yes.
we're not gonna list them off.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, they're not cool enough, I guess.
Especially John Cusack, like,
Oops.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
we're gonna ignore him. Just a little, I guess, blurb about this movie. After learning that a stranger has been accidentally killed near their rural homes, four Oregon boys, not Maine, you dummies, decide to go see the body. On the way, Gordy LaChance, Vern Tessio, Chris Chambers, and Teddy Duchamp encounter a mean junk man at a marsh full of leashes,
Ew.
as they also learn more about one another and their very different home lives. Just a lark at first, the boys' adventure evolves into a defining event in their lives.
Cute.
So, we are going to go right into the questions. Starting off with Gigi, going down the line, I will be last. Number 1. The movie is about four boys going on a trek to find a dead body. How would the movie differ if they never found it?
Okay. So I don't think Gordy would have gotten the closure that he probably needed since his brother's death. It may have just been like a regular camp out, but I feel like it was very maybe not important, but he kept stressing the fact that like he didn't know why, but he needed to go find that body. He wanted to find it, so I think it really helped with the closure of his brother's death. So, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just going to read what I wrote because I wrote a lot. So, I think the story would have differed greatly for all four boys, but I want to especially highlight the case of young Gordy. The novella overall is about dealing with change and a loss of innocence, but I think Gordy experiences it the most because he's the main narrator. Gordy's entire arc relies heavily on finding the body because it is symbolic of his need to deal with the grief he holds from losing his brother. Interestingly, Gordy's first lines in the story state that he was 12 going on 13 when he saw his first dead body, implying to me that he probably did not see his brothers. I think this line is key because it tells me that Gordy's issue with his grief is that it feels intangible to him. He didn't see his brother's body, therefore it almost wasn't real to him. It makes sense because it's a very childlike way to deal with grief, which is exactly what I'd expect of a young 12-year-old. This is the reason why he couldn't cry at his brother's funeral, but cried heavily for Ray Brower's. He was essentially stuck in the place between the denial and anger portions of his grief without any hope of moving forward. In the novella, Gordy's growth is seen throughout the story as he thinks more about Ray as the boys get closer to finding the body. He gains a sense of empathy for Ray, thinking about how alone he was after being hit by the train, how no one was there to save him or be with him in his final moments. His way of thinking changes to become more grown up, which he needs in order to deal with his grief properly. If the boys hadn't found the body, hadn't witnessed it firsthand with their eyes, I think Gordy would continue to remain in a place where he couldn't change or move on with his life. He would remain stuck in a place where he let the notions of others judge his actions and impressions of himself. Gordy needed to see that body because he needed to deal with his grief. The story would have changed drastically or perhaps come to a very unsatisfying conclusion if the body was never found.
Yeah, see, I said the same thing, just with little words.
Right, so Hannah, it sounds like you read The Body by Stephen King. Was that recent, or did you
Yep.
read it along? Oh, okay.
Literally, between the time we watched the movie and today, I read the book.
Nice.
It was really good.
Would you
I'm
recommend
guessing
it?
short?
Yeah, it's pretty short. It's a short story that comes from a book full of a bunch of his shorter stories.
Oh,
But
okay.
he definitely goes into a lot more detail, and it's much easier to kind of follow Gordy's thought process because he's narrating the entire thing, as opposed to just like little parts in the movie.
it, yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of hard to translate to movies, so
Right.
yeah, I would
Not a
definitely recommend it.
documentary. Just a whole narration over it.
In fact, we are going to read it for you guys right now.
Yes.
This
Chapter
is the
1.
audiobook version. But yeah.
All right. So I said that if they never found the body, I think the whole journey as a whole would not have been as important or meaningful to the boys, and especially for Gordy. Because, I mean, finding that body was the entire purpose of the story, and obviously they grew as characters along the way, and they learned more about themselves and each other. But finding what they were looking for in the end defined the journey as a whole, and it really left a big impact on them in the final act of the story and for the rest of their lives. And it for Gordy, I think it really hits hard for him. The ending that actually happened, it gave Gordy that closure that he was searching for after feeling, in denial and grief over his brother's death, and being able to talk about it and really cry about it with Chris at the end. I feel like that was, this closure that he was searching for, whether he knew it or not. And, it was a very satisfying ending. And I feel like if they never found the body and you never see that moment where Gordy opens up about his brother's death and all that, I just feel like it would be, like Hannah said, just unsatisfying, and it would probably make me feel empty. So
Empty inside forever.
yes. Not that I already am or anything.
Aww. I can hear the violins already.
Yeah.
Kyle learned how to play the violin just for this.
Yeah, between the time that we watched the movie and now.
We got busy this week.
Yeah. Okay, I put near the end, Gordy becomes obsessed with finding the body. If finding Ray Brower was taken away from him, possibly by Ace and his gang finding it first, he might have become unhinged, possibly staying in the forest for way too long in a desperate search. The other boys were becoming less and less enthused about seeing a dead body, so they may have dragged Gordy away.
Yeah.
But I think the overall movie would have been more about the journey instead of the destination. And the growth that they encountered on the journey. I do agree with Kyle and Hannah that it probably would have been less satisfying, but I think the overall, I guess maybe theme of it would have changed. Because in this movie, like, they do find the body, and it's very quiet right after Vern says, I think he says something like, "Hey guys, I found him," or something like that. It's very quiet. Like, that
Yeah.
becomes like the defining moment in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would have been more about like their encounters beforehand, like everything they went through just to get to that part. There probably would have been maybe more of a search, but I think the thing would have been, it's not about the destination, it's the journey there. But in this case, I think it was more about the closure of the destination instead of the journey. Okay, so moving on to number 2. Teddy was hell bent on defending his dad, even emulating him despite his burnt ear. Is the reason so simple as because he was at Normandy? Do you think he was subconsciously suicidal because of it?
Okay. So I think it might have to do with like the time, or maybe not the time. What do you say? Like the date, the year.
The era.
Taking place in, I think, like
Yes, era. Thank you.
1959 or something.
59.
Yeah, 1960.
So I think it may have had to do with like the era, which was like probably he saw his dad as a hero, as most people tend to view people that gone to war and or joined the military. So he probably was like raised with that kind of mentality of like respecting them, no matter like what they do, kind of thing. But that he probably sees his dad as a hero or is forced to see him as one. The stigma that comes with war is you go in one way, but you never come back the same. And he probably still thinks that there's some part of his dad, like pre-war, still in there. And so that's maybe what he's holding on to. But he's a kid, so at the same time, very impressionable, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of what I said too. Like, Teddy's, from what I can get of him, is a very troubled kid.
Yeah.
But he has a very idealistic image of his father that he's not really willing to break for anything, despite all the circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of sees his dad as this hero, and like Gigi said, it's definitely a symbol of the times, and all those guys had come home not too long ago from the war as heroes, so that's kind of like what I imagine a little 12-year-old boy would see, is that like, oh, these guys are heroes, this is how heroes act. So his father has these fits of rage, therefore he's like, oh, I need to have fits of rage because I'm gonna be
just
a
like
hero
him.
like my dad.
Yeah.
Teddy's dad also bullies people, so he's like, yeah, I need to bully people, and he definitely takes it out on Vern constantly.
Yeah.
But he kind of
Twice
takes
for
it out on
flinching.
everybody. Yeah. Despite all that, I don't think Teddy is suicidal. I think it's more of a case of him trying to prove to, whoever's there that he doesn't have any fear. He's kind of like one of those kids that's like, oh, if I'm going to be a hero, heroes don't fear anything.
Like, I'm not gonna cry.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to show my feelings. Like,
Yeah.
he has a very specific image of what a hero is, and he's like trying to emulate that the best way that he can. So like, even both in the book and the movie, he performs those train dodges that I think a lot of people interpret as a suicidal notion, but I think for me it goes a little bit deeper than that, where he's just trying to prove himself and prove that he's like fearless.
He's
So
Tonka tough.
Yeah, he's Tonka tough. But yeah, I don't think he's suicidal.
All right. So for this question, I feel like I kind of didn't really have like a clear answer that I was going for, but I'll just read what I wrote. I think despite Teddy's abusive father, there was this certain like unexplained respect that Teddy had for him, and that respect could be just because he was in Normandy, and like you guys were saying, he's sort of thought of as a hero, and there's just like this, this expectation that heroes are supposed to be respected and all that. But I also feel like maybe he was too afraid to admit, not to like just others but himself, that he was actually, afraid of his father. um I feel like fear might have been like his ultimate enemy, and perhaps holding him back from admitting the truth, that he quite possibly hated his father, but didn't want to see that or didn't want to admit it. um Probably because if he did admit it to someone, especially his father, that his father would probably just respond with trying to burn off his other ear or something. So
Yeah.
um, I think the only way he could be accepted by his father, according to him, was to just sort of overly defend him and respect him. Um, and then for the second part of the question, I don't think he was subconsciously suicidal. I think it was pretty much what Hannah was saying. I just feel like that train scene, he was trying to, like, I don't know, prove himself, and felt like he needed to do that, um, to try and be more like his father and be brave, and try and be a hero of sorts. But I don't think he was subconsciously or consciously suicidal. Um, I don't think death ever crossed his mind. He just wanted to throw himself out there and just take whatever came his way and try and be a man. So, yeah.
But he's just a boy.
As for me, I think it's more related to growing up in a small town in the 50s. That's his dad. There's not a whole lot of people in his life. So he's not going to have like a lot of people to look up to. But that's his dad. That's someone you're supposed to show respect to no matter what,
Yeah.
especially at the time. And then you throw on that he was a World War II vet, and that he's just a kid, like he doesn't know any better, and I think that just increases that. He probably idolized him because no one really knew back then that men should be held to a higher standard. So instead of like dominating everything and getting their way, like they didn't know anything or know any better.
Yeah.
That's how it was back then. Like the guy had like the final say, and that's how it was. And you can see throughout the movie, like Teddy emulates his dad on Normandy like several times throughout the movie, because boys will be boys, and that's what you're supposed to do. I think he was just kind of living up to like there's that stigma of this is what a man is like, not a boy but a man, and he wants to be that very badly. It does announce that he tried to get into the army several times at the end of the movie, failing each time due to medical stuff. But going back to the movie, he seemed reckless throughout the whole movie. First with the train, and then just being very loud in the junkyard with the dog. So I think, despite what you guys were saying, there was a little bit of subconscious suicidalness in it, because if you want to prove that you're brave, there are so many different ways to do it. But doing it in a way where, like, if you get it wrong, you're not only hurt, but you're dead. I think there's something to that. Like,
Maybe he gets a thrill out of it.
maybe
Yeah.
just the adrenaline.
Yeah.
But like the other three guys, like he had nothing to prove. Like he saw the other three guys get out of the way of the train
Right.
way before he tried to.
Right.
Or he didn't
Yeah.
try to. He was forced to.
Yeah.
So he had nothing to prove, but the fact that he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna play chicken with this game," pretty much in the same way that you see Ace playing chicken with that truck with the lumber in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Ace Ace didn't move a bit. He continued on expecting this other thing to
move out of his
move
way.
out of the way.
Yeah.
And I don't think Teddy was stupid enough to think the train's gonna like hop tracks and whatever.
Oh,
but
hey,
like,
there's a kid.
there's
Yeah.
there's literally no point in playing chicken with a train because you will lose if something goes wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Kinda
I
like
think
that-
they're.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's kind of like that scene from The Lion King where Scar tells Simba, like, hey, don't go to the elephant graveyard because only the bravest lions go there. And then he goes with his friend, potentially putting her in danger. They get caught by hyenas and they're only saved by Mufasa. And his dad talks to him about it later and is like, you know, I don't know why you did this. Like, you deliberately disobeyed me. And he's like, well, I just wanted to be brave like you. And he's like, well, I only have to be brave when I have to be. Like, there's just a certain element to it that seems very similar with Teddy's case, where he's like, I just want to be brave like my dad. My dad would dodge this train, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but there is a difference between bravery and stupidity here.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was not brave. It was just pure stupidity.
Yeah.
Not to him, though.
No,
Going
not to
back to your
him.
point
Definitely
about
not to him.
Him being
Right.
a kid.
Yeah.
Like, he
But
doesn't
I
know
mean,
any
even
better.
just no, because the other three did get out of the way. They saw, okay, there's a train. Let's get off the
just move,
tracks.
Yeah.
I don't think that had to do with anything with being a kid. But anyway, moving on to number 3. It isn't revealed what happens to Gordy's relationship with his parents afterwards. Do you see Gordy's parents going back to normal at any point?
So I said I don't think they would ever go back to the normal way of things. I feel like Gordy will always be the invisible boy to them. More for the fact of like he's not like his brother. He didn't play football. He doesn't seem like the very athletic type. So I was like, well, he did race his friends, but I think that was more out of like childlike, I don't know, challenge. Like, oh, my friend's racing, I'm gonna race him. It wasn't more of like a pure sport athletic kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
So, I feel like he probably, unfortunately, got used to being ignored for the most part, and things just didn't go back to how they were before.
All right, Hannah?
Yeah, I don't see them going back to normal anytime soon. The movie and the book both state that, like, Denny's death was in April, and I think this takes place in June or July. And, you know, if I was playing absolute devil's advocate, I would say, hey, you gotta give them a little bit more time than that to grieve.
Right.
But I think overall, like, I don't see them going back to any sort of normalcy because Gordy specifically mentions that, like, there's a 10-year difference between him and Denny, and his existence is, like, clearly that of an accident.
Yeah.
And he's kind of plagued his entire life because he lives in his brother's big shadow, and I think his parents would only come around if Gordy showed signs of being more similar to Denny, just like Gigi was saying. But, you know, since he's not,
Wait.
he's just like, wait, what?
You said there's a 10-year gap between
There's
them?
a 10-year gap between them.
So he's
yeah.
22?
Yeah.
I
Damn.
thought he was in high school.
No.
Like, it made it seem like, because the dad was like, there's gonna be scouts there, and, oh shit.
Maybe it was college.
His brother,
I thought he was,
they don't really
Ah.
show it in the movie, but his Jeep accident was actually in the army.
oh.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah, I thought he was like a football kid,
Same.
you know, got into a car accident.
Varsity
Yeah.
quarterback.
that might have been
Yeah,
something
the
they
quarterback
changed.
too. Yeah.
It might have been something they changed from book
Yeah,
to
that could have
movie,
been
but
too.
they did mention, like, yeah, there's 10 years between them. He's clearly an accident, and he's clearly nothing like his brother.
Right.
So even when his parents in the movie are like, why can't you have friends like Denny's or whatever? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that just completely reads to me that, like, if you were more like your brother, maybe I would notice you, but
Yeah, yeah.
since you're not, I'm not going to.
I'm not gonna bother to get to know this new kid.
Yeah. I
Oh,
mean,
so sad.
ideally, obviously, I would love for them to bury the hatchet later in life and, acknowledge him with the respect and love he always deserved, but
Right.
I don't see it happening, which is
Yeah.
sad.
All right. So I wrote that it really didn't seem like his parents were ever quote unquote normal to Gordy. Um,
Yeah.
it just looked like it was all about his older brother all the time. And I don't think there's any amount of time that will pass for Gordy's parents to be accepting of their second child. Um, it almost seems like they sort of like I wouldn't say not blame Gordy for his brother's death, but like it's more like because they say in the movie like, oh, or I guess it was a dream, but either way, he was like, his father was like, oh, I wish it was you that died instead of your brother,
Right.
and
Why couldn't it have been you?
yeah, yeah, and I mean that's about as low as it gets if you're a parent.
Yeah.
I mean that and like child abuse is pretty low. But
Yeah.
I just personally don't see them ever getting over that. Um, and I don't think they were ever really like great parents to Gordy. Like it doesn't really seem like they ever really cared about him, which is really sad. But I just think
Yeah.
that's how it is.
Okay.
Um, I don't see them going back to normal, but over decades, I do see them becoming less distant over time.
Yeah.
But I see Gordy moving on, becoming more distant to them.
Hmm.
Instead becoming more close to Chris. Um, his seeing Chris's death is kind of what prompted this whole movie. He's like, oh god, that guy, like I remember him, um, but the fact that adult Gordy never mentions his parents, you do see them in flashbacks, but like he never mentions like my relationship with my mother and father, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that kind of signals like a widening gap between them. Despite that, over time, it should be getting not easier, but hurting less. And I think over the decades, probably like they might reach out every now and then because, like it or not, Gordy's all they have at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't see it ever going back to normal if there even was like a normal.
Yeah, that's a good question. It was like, was there ever a normal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like Kyla probably had the a good point of like they were probably never really like the best parents to him
Yeah.
in the sense like it was all about the older brother.
Yeah. Number 4. Is Chris's dream about missing catching Teddy falling out of the tree a foreshadow of Teddy's life? Or do you see it as just a dream?
Um, I put that. I think it's how Chris imagines Teddy's life would be. Um, if Chris wasn't there to kind of save him, quote unquote. Um, I mean, the end after the group breaks up, you hear like he's pretty much gotten into trouble since
Yeah.
they separate. So I feel like Chris kind of had or felt the responsibility for him in a sense. I think he kind of has that for everyone as well, but um, just him falling from the tree and keep dreaming about it. I feel like he wanted to still have that kind of responsibility for him. Or yeah,
Yeah. Um, I mean, you can clearly see in the movie that Chris is the peacekeeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vern being a very close second, but he's not quite there yet.
he
But
tried.
I think, and I'm not sure, I can't remember if in the movie Chris tells the story. I know in the book, the story about catching Teddy is real. but the
Right.
dream is also a subsequential thing that he has. And the story about catching Teddy was interestingly like he barely caught him
Right.
when he out of the tree, and it like scared him and kind of like gave him this like overwhelming sense of relief that he did catch him. So the dream to me kind of reads as like a metaphor or a sign that he can't save Teddy.
Oh.
Like no matter how hard he tries, because he barely caught him in real life, and all of his dreams about it tell him like, oh, he dropped him. So
So, a metaphor for there's definitely no saving this kid.
yeah, it seems to read to me as like, yeah, you can't save this kid from himself. He has to save himself from himself. You know, his role model is a rageful war veteran.
Yeah.
It's gonna be incredibly hard to save Teddy from his own life, you know, especially considering how much he idolizes his father and how much he gets into trouble. So it kind of symbolizes to me that Chris wants to constantly help Teddy and help him change himself and help him for the better, but if Teddy doesn't change himself, he's not going to be able to save him. It's like a two-way battle, and you know, Chris can't do it on his own.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I couldn't quite come up with the words for this answer or for this question, but I was going along the same lines of what Hannah was just saying, how I feel like the dream and for me, like I don't know, like there was some kind of connection between the dream and then the train scene where Chris, you know, tackles Teddy and gets him out of the off the train tracks. And I don't know, it felt like sort of like a symbolism or like a metaphor or whatever you want to call it, but I couldn't like put the words together. So I ended up just saying, it's just a dream. Because I couldn't like put the words together, if that makes sense. But
I was
like
like, words are hard.
yeah, but Hannah, I feel like Hannah said what I was
Hannah
trying to
gets
say. Yeah.
Words
Okay.
came together for me.
Yeah. Thank you.
I saw it more as of an examination of Teddy through Chris's point of view, like a current examination. Chris is trying to help Teddy after another stupid stunt, but was unsuccessful, leading to Teddy's downfall, as in kind of like what Hannah was saying, but more of a this is what he's like now. Chris probably sees Teddy as the most likely to get into like a serious accident, which I mean, Teddy gave him
Clearly.
plenty of evidence for that.
Yeah.
But I think it's what Chris was thinking of Teddy at the moment. Just I couldn't save him. There's nothing I could have done for this kid. He's going to get himself hurt because of something that he did. That's what I got out of it.
Dreams are weird.
Dreams are weird.
Dreams are dumb.
Yeah. Tell me
Freud would actually complain. Okay,
He'd
number
complain, then have an argument with himself.
yeah. Number 5. Cordy's tears come after finding Ray Brower's dead body, but not at his brother's funeral, perhaps not realizing he's given a second chance in a sense. Was there a time in your life where you think you missed an important moment only to substitute the chance at a different time?
So I don't know if this counts or not. So I just wrote what I thought would work. So I wrote missing the Disney internship. If that hadn't happened, I would have been working at Disney. But instead, I got stuck in Anaheim for a year, which was the year I met Trevor. So in a sense, like if I had gotten that internship, like I wouldn't have met you. And yeah, so that would have been.
Dang.
I think the question was more of...
I don't know. I said
I know. You kind of went down like a I guess, cause and consequence type thing.
I guess. I don't know.
But I was thinking
If
more of
this
like you
happened,
missed your
this wouldn't
Disney
have happened.
internship and then like you tried to go for it again, maybe going for like a different company, thinking like, oh, I couldn't go for Disney, maybe I'll try for something else.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't know. That's how I interpreted it.
Okay.
So that's what I'm going with.
Okay, yeah.
Well, if that did happen, then Trevor and I would have been together, and everything would have been fine, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
he
man.
would have
Yeah,
moved up
we'd
to
already
Santa
have
Clara
flying cars and
on a
stuff.
whim. He was like, I'm gonna move up north because I'm tired of south. Yeah, that's gonna happen. That would have
Yeah.
happened.
Well, I was getting tired of Southern California.
But would you have moved up to the Bay Area?
Probably
For
not.
me, yes.
Yeah, if I knew Kyle was up there in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't have even like taken my stuff, just my car.
Start a new life.
Just my
Yeah.
body.
Kyle can provide for me.
He's just a wee
God.
lad in high school.
Yeah,
but he
I would
can
have been a
provide for
sophomore in high school. Like, that would have been a weird situation.
That changes nothing, Kyle.
That's true. You can't change true love.
Would have been on like Xbox instead of PlayStation.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, because I had my 360. I still have my 360, but that's all I had.
I had a 360 at the time.
See, you guys would have met.
So we'd be playing a lot of Halo.
I
Yeah.
also had a 360 at that time, so.
I did not. I would not have gone into gaming.
Well, we wouldn't have met you because you'd be at Disney.
Oh.
Yeah, Gigi, you're not a part of this.
I may have met Hannah, like if Hannah like somehow made it into Disney and we became friends. That could have been a thing too.
You know how big Disney is?
You know how big your ego is?
Oh, man.
Let me live my life.
Squak multiverse.
You could have your own life with Kyle, and I would have had Hannah with me.
Hannah, did you say
See?
did you say homie squawk multiverse?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Okay. Well, whatever. That's what I thought of the question.
Getting back to the real question.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm just gonna read what I wrote, cause yeah.
It's long.
Yeah. I said, I think dealing with the death of my first dog was very similar to Gordy's experience. When my dog died, I grieved, but I wasn't there to witness him pass away. My parents wanted to spare us of that experience because we were still young when it happened.
Yeah.
No matter how much I missed him, I still felt that there was a disconnect between the last time I saw him and the moment that my dad returned home from the vet without him.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until years later when I read and watched the movie of Marley and Me that I felt the proper release of this grief that was warranted from losing my boy. The book and the movie didn't hold back and didn't spare me of any of the details of losing a pet that is loved so much, especially when I was watching the movie and watching the light literally leave the dog's eyes.
Ugh.
Had like a very profound effect on me, as I've
Yeah.
mentioned on the other podcast.
Yeah.
But I felt like despite that, I was finally able to properly accept my dog's loss by witnessing the experience that I had been spared from before. And I ugly cried. And I ugly cried to the extent that I don't exactly remember the exact moments of watching it anymore. I kind of just recall it by from what the other people in the room witnessing it told me.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was, for me, years worth of denial, anger, and sadness that was just released in this one, like, cathartic moment. But I think it was needed, for sure. You know, I think it was needed for me to move on and to, you know, figure out exactly what I was dealing with. And I think overall, like, the hole in my heart that had been taken in that moment, it wasn't filled, but it was kind of mended in a different way so that I could move forward and open my heart back up to that kind of love again. So,
Yeah.
yeah. It was a second chance kind of.
Yeah. Now that Hannah just shared that, I just thought of a second one, but I'm going to read what I wrote and then I'll touch on the second one. So I feel like what I wrote down is not exactly like Gordy's situation with his brother. There's no death involved in mine. But I feel like I've been able to get a second chance with a friend that I thought I'd never talk to again. I know I've mentioned him before recently, and he actually comes up in another question later, but so he'll get mentioned twice in this episode. But anyway, I feel like I feel like when my best friend left with his family back in 2005, I never got a chance to say a proper goodbye or even a chance to keep in touch. We never thought of it at the time, and I feel like we were so young to the point where it didn't really process what was happening. So we thought that, I don't know, as kids we were just like, oh yeah, we'll see each other again or whatever. But like that was it. He just left. And I'm not really entirely sure why we didn't try to keep in touch, or even like our parents, like they could have tried to keep us in touch. They knew that him and I were close, but it just didn't happen. But 16 years have passed, and him and I have finally reconnected recently, something I had never thought would happen. And I feel extremely grateful for that. I feel like life is a mystery at times, and this is one of those mysteries for me where I still can't believe him and I found each other after all this time. And I'm really happy that we did. As kids, he was the first friend that I ever had, and the only one at the time besides my father and my grandma he was like the only one that was there for me. We understood each other, and he was more than a best friend to me when we were kids. He felt like a brother to me, and his family treated me like their own. And this was at a time when mine was falling apart, so I'll never forget that. But I just think it's even more amazing that him and I are talking now and able to catch up after all these years. It means a lot to me, and I hope it means a lot to him too, which I'm pretty sure it does. But then since Hannah
Way to
talked
assume,
about,
Kyle.
yeah, right. But after hearing Hannah's story, it kind of reminded me of when one of my dogs passed away back in 2016. It was a really odd situation because it happened so fast. My dad's dog was she was only 3 years old, and she was a really tiny dog. Like she was super small. She was like the size of like I don't know. She was really small. And she was one of those tiny dogs who just had like a lot of energy and fight in them, and like she made it seem like she was like 10 times as big as she really was. Like she had a lot of attitude to her, but like she was a really sweet dog. And during the summer, it was around like 4th of July, and we had some family that were visiting, and during that week, like everything seemed fine. Like she was running around with the rest of the dogs, and like everything was fine and nothing seemed wrong. And then like out of nowhere, she gets like super sick, and then we take her to the vet. And I wasn't there personally, but my dad was telling us that she had kidney failure.
Oh.
And like just it was like a complete 180. Like she was just the happiest dog ever, and then suddenly was just limping around, and like she just acted like she was a 20-year-old dog. Like she was just so, like, I don't know, dead inside. And it was just really weird timing because like I said, my family was visiting, so they were there and we were all still trying to have a good time, but like my dog was dying. And there was no hope. Like there was no chance she was going to survive. She was going to die. And it was just a matter of time before we decided that, you know, we either put her down or just let her die. Um, and at the end of the week, I think we found out like on a Tuesday, and then she ended up passing on a Friday of that same week. So during that time, my girlfriend at the time and we actually had a weekend planned out because it was 4th of July, and we were going to go to Monterey that weekend, and we still did. Um, but the plan was to leave that Friday morning, and uh, you know, it was a really weird kind of situation for me because I kind of felt bad for leaving, but at the same time, like my dad was telling me like it's okay, you can go, and like there's no reason for you to stick around and just enjoy your weekend with your girlfriend. And and that Friday morning, um, you know, my family just left. They went back home, so it was just me and my stepmom, stepsister, and my dad at the house that morning before I left. And we were all just kind of like spending time with Dawn, our dog, and she just felt so lifeless, and like it was really weird to, I don't know, see her like that because she was always so, you know, up and at 'em, and she wasn't, you know, I wasn't gonna be there for her that weekend, and you know, I thought that maybe there was a chance she wouldn't be dead when I got back. Um, but when, but I, you know, I kind of said goodbye to her anyway, and it didn't feel quite right to me because I still felt like there was more that I had to say, and I don't know. I held her in my arms one last time, and then I gave her back to my dad, and I left. And then we went to Monterey, and when we checked into the hotel, and everything, I kind of forgot about the whole thing. And then I opened up Facebook, and my dad had this post about her, and he said that she died in his arms that morning.
Aww.
And after that, you know, there was a lot of guilt on my part because I felt like I should have been there. And then I just started crying for like, it was like 2 hours where I just didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to sit in the hotel room and just kind of cry about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was really tough because I just felt like I'd made the wrong decision by leaving, and I should have stayed and just canceled what I was doing. But, I don't know. I still don't really know how I feel about it, but I mean, you know, my dad and I have talked about it, and it's really tough for him to talk about it because I don't know. She was one of those, just such an innocent looking dog, and you know, it felt like she just got her life taken away from her just because of, you know, I mean, she had kidney failure basically because she's just too small of a dog. You know, she couldn't grow, and she just had that, I don't know if it's just a genetical problem or what, but it was just really tough to not be there and hear the news like that. You know, I felt like there should have been more that I could have done for not just Dawn, but for my dad too. But I don't know. It was tough.
Yeah, mine is pretty similar to both Hannah's and Kyle's. Um, Growing up, my family was always a pug family, which if you know anything about pugs, they're that kind of breed where like they're gonna have health problems because they're just because of how they're bred, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have back problems, they have organ problems, and they have breathing problems. They just have a lot of problems because they're pugs.
Yeah.
But you know, they're really fun, and um, like I said, we had four pugs, and each time, um, I was never told, I think beforehand, that my dad would take him, put him to sleep. It was always like I would come home and, oh, hey, where is Pugsley? And we had to put him to sleep. And I would, I would cry just like a little bit because they're not coming back, and you didn't really get to say goodbye. But there's sort of like almost a disconnect.
Yeah.
But when we got our cat Buddy, that was the first time I saw that transition, and I cried pretty hard at that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it hit differently,
Yeah.
and like we only had her for a year. Like we didn't have her for long, and I definitely had our pugs for like a good 6, 7, 8, 9 years. Like I cried way harder for Buddy than I did for any of our pugs. Just I don't know. Maybe it's just getting that chance to say goodbye.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, and kind of what the point of the movie was, like seeing it, witnessing it, you know, witnessing the dead body for Gordy is exactly what he needed in order to properly deal with it. And that's kind of, what all of us kind of have gone through
Yeah.
in these, other situations where we did get second chances to grieve for it. It was different and it hit different because it was witnessed.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a key part of it.
So I have one, but I don't want it to be on the podcast.
Okay.
Just because it's not my, how do I say it?
Not for you to share.
Yeah, it's not for me to share.
Yeah. Okay. Two things before we move on. One is I have to cut this video here. And two is life is precious and I love you guys.
Oh, Kyle.
Oh.
Stop trying to make me cry.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be this kind of podcast, but
Well, death is involved.
Yeah. All right.
Number 6. Knowing what happens, would you go through the same dangers, possibly with worse results, for a second chance to say goodbye to a loved one?
And by same dangers, you mean what they went through, right?
Yeah. I meant by this question, would you put yourself in one of their positions? Pretty much go on this journey.
So I put yes. My answer will always be yes, no matter what. I will not waste a second chance. I would always, if I get a chance, I will always go for that. And I think a really good example of that is when my grandpa had his heart attack, and I had 3 days off, not planned, and I got the call that he had a heart attack. I was like, I'm going. I have the 3 days off. I will drive. I will fly. I'm going home. Like, that was just my instinct to do. And I think I will do that no matter what for anyone.
For me, I said absolutely. The path to moving forward in anything is going to be tough and definitely lined with obstacles and challenges. And I believe that if we deny these obstacles or run away from them in fear, we run the risk of burying ourselves and getting stuck in one place or one way of thinking. So, we can often get lost in anger, grief, confusion, etc., with no hope of moving forward in our lives, but it's no way to live in the end. So, like, bringing it up again, but life is about balance and progress, and we have to move forward, and we have to conquer the obstacles in our lives, and that's just a part of growing up. So, yeah, I would absolutely put myself in that situation.
Yeah, I also said that I would. I'm the type of person who hates goodbyes. And when I say that, I don't just mean like, a death in the family or whatever. Just like in general, like when I see you guys after not seeing you for months or years, I'm like, I don't want this to end. Can we not say goodbye and just keep hanging out? um,
Can
so
y'all
I,
just move in with me? That'd be great.
yeah. And whenever these goodbyes happen, I always feel like I didn't say the right thing or didn't really get my point across the first time. And to get that second chance would mean everything to me. To really say what I wanted to say, or say everything from my heart, stuff that I didn't even think of, or I don't know, just feel like I'm always better when I get a second chance at something. So yes, I would always take a second chance or a third chance or any chance.
Yeah. Same as you guys. If I lost Gigi or Taylor and was either too numb or in denial or disbelief or just couldn't process it, um, I would definitely go through the same thing. I would probably go through any length just to get that second chance. Um, yeah, that was basically it.
Yes.
Last question. The last lines of the script that adult Gordy is working on are, I never had any friends later on like the ones I had when I was 12. Jesus, does anyone?
Jesus.
Jesus
Do you think
Christ.
this is true? Is it true for you? What is it about childhood friendship that is so hard, if not impossible, to replicate in adulthood?
I put no. It's not true for me. Uh, I mean, when I was younger, we moved a little bit, and then we settled into the house my parents still have when I was in first or second grade. And I cannot tell you anyone I was friends with in elementary school.
Hmm.
I think the only people that I really still would consider friends were people I met in middle school, in high school, and I barely still talk with them. Or I shouldn't say barely. I sometimes talk with them, um, but it's not the same as if like hanging out with you guys, which makes this question or the answer for my question why it's no is because I have you guys and I met you guys obviously outside of like childhood or we're still children. I don't know yet.
We're
So
still children.
yeah, so I think that's what it is, and I think that the childhood friendships are a little harder to duplicate in an adult friendship, is because you're seeing the person after they've went through their awkward phases, after their embarrassing moments or secrets or family things, like I guess like Kyle pointed out, like his childhood friend as someone that saw him when he was younger and maybe see him grow a little bit when they were together, but it's pretty much like a friend would be like a cousin, like someone that's seen your family and knows the embarrassing stories, that kind of thing. Whereas an adult, you have to relate on your memory to try to remember those embarrassing stories and stuff like that. So I think it might be hard to duplicate that because people try to either hide their past or they fabricate and make up who they are because you're meeting someone new and they don't know you. So I think that's why it's harder. So, yeah.
Yeah, just gonna read what I wrote. I think it's important to consider something that Stephen King said about childhood in one of his interviews. Yes, I got curious, so I did a little digging. Mostly because I've noticed a lot of his novels and things involve children.
Uh-huh.
I was gonna say childhood, and then I was like, wait. But there's a lot of kids in his novels.
Yeah.
So In one interview that I found, he says, there are two things that interest me about childhood. One being that childhood exists in its own world and is run by its own rules, while the second thing is that we, as adults, forget what it's like to be a child. And I think that's absolutely true. Childhood is like a whole other world, even when you try to recall details of it as an adult. There's an innocence to childhood that's lost as you're exposed to more of the world and how it works. How fast you learn is all dependent on how much you're exposed to and at what age, but you have to learn these things eventually. Childhood friendship is interesting because you bond with each other based on a mutual understanding of each other that is wrapped in a blanket of innocence. Appearances are less relevant, schedules are less relevant, even time itself is less relevant. Kids have this special ability where they are all able to live each and every day in the moment. They aren't thinking about the past, and they're definitely not thinking about the future. When you're a kid, all that matters is, what are we going to do today? It's beautiful, and it's special, and it's something that's lost with maturity and age, just like the friends you made as a kid are often lost into time as well. And it's kind of summed up in the book when Chris says that kids lose everything unless there's someone to look out for them. So I think it's for me, it's absolutely true that we have certain friends when we're kids because there's a different way of thinking when you're a kid.
Yeah.
And there's absolutely, things that are lost when you age. So, yeah, I think it's all about the fact that kids have that ability to live in the moment and adults don't. So,
Yeah.
there's different factors that go into making friends as an adult versus making friends as a kid.
Yeah. I feel like it's much harder to make friends as an adult too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yep.
I think the sexual thing is like what blocks it, because what sex people are like attracted to people, and I feel like that kind of goes into the blocking of friendship.
Oh, you mean
even
like I don't know what you mean by
Sexual
that.
tension, I guess.
Like
Maybe not like sexual tension, but the fact of like for girls, like being friends with guys, it kind of goes into the fact of like, am I being too friendly to the point where he thinks I'm into him, or am I like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I would say even to the extent of like just judgment in general.
Oh yeah.
People are able to make judgments as adults way better than they are as kids. Like when you're a kid, if your mom sticks you in a playpen with another kid, you guys are going to be like, "Hey, you want to play trucks? Let's play trucks." Like,
yeah.
But if your mom stuck you in as an adult with another adult, you guys are gonna up and down each other and be like,
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Are you wearing Crocs?
Yeah. What are those?
Yeah. Judgment is a really good.
Yeah, it's a different way of thinking, different brain.
Oh yeah.
ah yes, to be young again.
No brains.
Youth, I miss it.
Brains are
Just
overrated.
Cars.
Yeah, so to answer this question for me, I think it's true for me. The closest friends that I had in my childhood, they meant everything to me. As a kid, you don't ever really see these tight bonds that were formed ever breaking. But more often than not, as you grow up, they do tend to break, and it's a shame, but I also feel like it is sort of meant to happen to a lot of friendships. There's so many people that I have grown up with, and so many relationships that have been formed and broken over the years, but I mean, nothing really replaces the friendships that I had when I was a kid. It just feels different entirely. As a kid, I feel like we were, much more innocent and learning a lot for the first time and sharing those types of first time experiences with my best friends. It just had more meaning. you know, what's even worse from my childhood is that I feel like a piece of that friendship was sort of ripped away from me. You know, the best friend that I mentioned earlier, he moved away when we were just in second grade. And that was really hard for me. We were at an age of just being kids and enjoying every day without a care in the world. And it just felt like one day he was there and the next he was gone. And as an 8-year-old, it's tough to really process that. And obviously, I moved on from it. But I often looked back on that bond that I had with him, and you know, I always wondered what could have been. Of course, um, you know, we've recently reconnected, as I mentioned. So it's really awesome that we found each other. But you know, I still have to ask myself, after 16 years, you know, what could have been? Like, what if he never left, or what if we were able to grow up together? You know, like how much would our lives have changed? Because I knew that he had my back as a kid, and I had his. And if he never left and we grew up together through the rest of elementary school and middle school and high school, like you know, I mentioned earlier how, you know, a lot of bonds and a lot of friendships tend to break as people get older, but I wonder if ours would have remained or if it would have broke. And you know, it's kind of maybe a good thing that we did split up as young as we did and are able to be friends as adults because of this bond that we shared as kids, instead of, you know, us just growing apart naturally. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
how things would have changed, but I don't know. It's
Does he still live near you? Like,
no, he lives
oh,
in,
okay.
well, I guess I wouldn't want to say where he lives.
No, but like, does he live in the same state?
No, no.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's probably like 12 hours away. No, maybe more than
Oh.
that. I don't really know the time frame of
Hmm.
here to there, but um, you know, I often think about what ifs, and I can't remember where I heard it, but I think it was in a movie or TV show or something, but someone said that what ifs are a waste of time, and um, you know, I do believe that, but I also can't help myself when it comes to what ifs, and I always think about, oh, what if this happened, or what if they never left, or what if that, you know, what if I was never friends
Yeah.
with this person, or if I was friends with this person, you know, and I often go through all those different scenarios in my head. But anyway, enough about me.
Yeah, Kyle, this isn't about what is.
Okay, so to round it off, I think it's true for most people, and for myself, I would say yes and no. Um, Kids tend to be more open about who they are, not really caring about the differences between them, the insecurity someone might have, and so on. You see another kid, and you're like, cool, like let's go do something. I think, like Hannah said, with the like your mom sticking you in a pen or in like the same daycare or something, like who you're around, that's who your friend is.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas like adults, like you're constantly like judging each other and like maybe even using each other. Like you might have friends that you're friends with because of they can provide you with something. Where it gets
Yes.
more superficial as it goes on, possibly. But like with with kids, it definitely feels more genuine. Like you're friends because you're friends. Like that's as simple and as complex as it needs to be.
Yeah.
Um, I
Unless you're
I
a kid that like chose the wrong color shoes that day. Just you're wearing red shoes when I specifically asked you to wear your blue ones.
I had a friend. We went to the same daycare. His mom worked there, and I don't know. I wouldn't say inseparable, just because we lived so far away. But like we were always hanging out. Like that was my best friend. That was, your best friend before best friend was even like a thing you thought of.
Yeah.
Like that's just someone you hung out with because, that's just your friend.
Yeah.
And then he moved away. Um, even farther away, so we didn't really get to hang out that much. It was mainly only like summers, and then at one point we just didn't hang out at all. Like that was the last time without us knowing it was the last time,
Yeah.
and we just sort of drifted apart. We did our own thing, and that was it. And now trying to find friends these days, like I'm very lucky that I have you two as well as Gigi.
A.
Just because I think we click so well together. But like if it wasn't for you guys, I'd be down to just Gigi and
Hey!
whatever friends she has, and I'll try to make those people my friends. But still, like
Force
as an
them.
adult, there's like, oh, you're bringing politics, you're bringing status, you're bringing money, you're bringing
Yeah.
whatever the fuck into this, and that becomes a factor.
Yeah.
But like as a kid, you don't think about that shit. Like there's no way you're like, oh, you voted for this person? We can't be friends.
You're a 6-year-old.
Well,
Smart
actually,
kid,
like
too.
you didn't
Yeah.
vote for me to be your best friend. Like that could be a thing too. Most
I
popular
think that's
kindergartner.
more an adult, older person.
You don't
Like,
have
as a
a red
child,
truck?
though.
We all
Yeah.
have red trucks.
See, that's what I mean. It's all about the color and what you have.
So it's definitely a whole lot easier because there's less things to ruin it.
Yeah,
I think.
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, so we're moving on to the final three.
What is this, Survivor?
Yes. I'm gonna do the tomato score first.
Okay.
The tomato meter got a 91%, and the audience score got a 94%. Do you guys agree with that? Have
What
you
was the
changed-
audience again?
Audience was 94.
Oh.
The critics was 91.
Yes.
I agree with the audience.
94?
Yeah. It was. I don't like mean this as like an insult to it. It was a simple film, but it got its point across, I think, and it was. I think it aged well, especially for the fact that like it was filmed in the 80s, but set in the 50s,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
I
And
think filmed in 1986.
yeah, so I think for that, like I said, I think it aged well. Like it still you could still rewatch it today. Still, I think get the lesson that they were trying to get through for it. So yeah, I would say 94 is pretty good score for it.
I'd say the same. My score would definitely be a 94. I thought the performances by the younger actors were pretty great.
Yeah.
Especially River Phoenix and Will Wheaton. I thought they
Yeah.
knocked it out of the park. I thought the movie was great because it wasn't bloated with like extra Hollywood scenes or anything.
Yeah.
Like they weren't trying to highlight like, oh, these are gonna be the next young stars or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
kind of focused on the plot, which was great.
Yeah.
I thought the magical realism of Gordy's story was put to good use. Like I really
Yeah,
enjoyed like
definitely.
seeing that play out rather
Yeah.
than him just telling the story. But I think, what doesn't put it higher for me is like and I don't even know if this is really fixable, but the older boys scenes kind of felt irrelevant. It just kind of, I mean, they serve as the main antagonists, but they're just kind of there for plot convenience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if that's fixable. I don't know what I would do to fix that, but that's kind of the only thing that really downgrades this movie. But like Gigi said, it definitely holds up. Like I haven't watched this movie in a while, but watching it just now with you guys, I was like reignited. I was like, yes, I love this movie. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with the audience score. I think 94 is pretty spot on.
Spot on.
Spot on.
Quite have.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the kid actors, the main characters, if you will. I thought their performances and the characters that they were playing, I felt like they were genuine. They were real characters. And
They're real boys.
and like Hannah said, you know, it didn't feel like it was bloated at all with you know, the Hollywood sort of movie. Like it just felt like a real movie. It just felt like a real story that was just happened to be filmed. And yeah, it was just a really good, genuine, heartfelt movie.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything you guys said. There's one scene that just it sticks in my mind, and I don't know why, but
Chopper
it's
sick
right
balls?
after what?
Chopper sick balls?
No, it's right after the leech scene where they're planning on like, hey, maybe we should go back,
Yeah.
and they're kind of fighting, and then Gordy he's off to the side a little bit, and you're seeing it kind of from his point of view. Just the way he snaps his head around and screams, "Stop it!" I think that was so expertly done. I think one thing that they say in Hollywood is like, don't work with kids or animals just because they're not, they're not trained to the point where you want them to be trained. But I think the performance of these boys was just fantastic.
Oh yeah.
And just, I don't know, that scene, it seemed like the most real thing in the whole movie to me.
Yeah, it was very genuine.
Do you think it's
Yeah.
something you could relate to? I'm just like the fact that like you're usually quiet unless something bothers you.
I don't know, I don't think I've ever screamed at someone in that way before. Ever. But, I don't know. That's a pretty good insight right there.
Maybe
But
you felt
yeah,
that
I
way.
I agree with the audience score. I can see this being a timeless classic, just for the subject matter of four boys going on what they thought was just a simple adventure, only to find something deeper.
Mm-hmm.
But um, well, we have the other question, so I'll save that for later. Let's go to what would you change?
Mine's simple. I said put more music. I love 50s and 60s music. I love that era. That's why I wanted my wedding theme to be 50s, 60s. Yeah. I don't know. That was it. Like, I don't think I would change it. I don't think I could put my touch on it and make it magical. So, yeah, just more music.
I think the only thing that I would change in this is that I think I would have played up the drama of the train scene a bit more. Just from
Which one?
reading the like main train where he's like gets up in slow motion like train.
Okay. That's what I thought, but like I'm like, there's also like him train dodging, so
It's true. My bad. My bad. No, the details in the book of how terrifying that scene is for them just seems kind of lost a bit in the movie. Which I get it. It's hard to translate that from book to movie, but it like when I was reading through it, I was like biting my nails like, "Oh my gosh, they're not going to make it," even though I knew they were going to make it.
Yeah, Stephen King does such a good job.
Yeah.
Not to sidetrack it, but when I was reading The Shining, there's a scene in the book where, oh my god, I'm forgetting the kid's name. Danny? Danny.
Danny.
Yeah.
He's upstairs, I believe, and there's like this little emergency fire hose, and he's kind of like losing his mind a little bit. He's imagining like it's like I guess like very snake-like, and just that whole scene, the way he wrote it, I'm like, holy shit! Like Stephen King made me afraid of a fire hose. Like that's how well done it was.
That guy can make you afraid of anything, I believe
Yeah.
it. But I think when I was going over the movie scene again, like I was like, I think I would change some of the camera angles, make some more cuts between the train and the boys running, like really play up the tension, turn up the audio of the train to make it seem like more of a
Yeah.
rolling death machine, like just I would make a couple of editorial or directorial choices in there. in order to like really get across that like this was terrifying for them because it's a train and they could die in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But other than that, I really appreciate how genuine this movie was, from the portrayals of the young kids, but also like the 50s feel of everything. So I don't think I would change like anything else. It's really good.
For me, uh, not really much of anything I would change. I think the train scene where they're running away, um, I liked how they showed the train tracks and how there was basically a lot of holes where the kids could have fallen through and maybe gotten their legs stuck or something. So I feel like if that would have happened to like Vern or something, like I could see Vern falling through.
Poor Vern.
And then like
Falling through to get his comb.
adding like adding
Not the
that
comb.
adding that sort of conflict to this scene. Like I feel like that maybe would have done a little more for it, but I still feel like that scene in itself was still really tense. And then yeah, I mean, I don't really know about the whole other, the older kids. What was the main
Ace.
guy's name? Ace.
Ace.
Yeah,
An
like
eyeball.
I feel like they were kind of, I don't know, whatever. I mean, I feel like they did serve a purpose at the end of the movie when they're all there in front of the dead kid's body. So I thought they were important there, but like all the scenes that just showed them, like I feel like, I don't know, like I feel like maybe they served a purpose to show that they were coming and like kind of on their way to get the body or something, but I feel like it was already established at the beginning of the movie when they were talking about it on the doorsteps. But I don't know. And then also the kid. I mean, was this movie PG-13 or R?
I would have to look that up.
So
It's rated R.
Okay.
That's
So I feel like maybe they could have done a little more to the kid's face, make him more fucked up.
Well,
I mean, that's
keep
kind
in
of fucked
mind-
up to say, but
This is 1986. Not to diminish the movies that they've done in that time period, but they certainly didn't have the technology they do have now to make it more realistic.
yeah, I guess.
I can see Kyle's point though. Like he got hit by a train.
Yeah,
And, like it didn't
yeah.
look like he got hit by a train.
He should have had some like limbs missing or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, like was it
More
was
than
it
his
head
shoe
on
missing.
or like was it from the side? Like you got to know these details.
I do have to wonder though on that point, like, was it because obviously, to me, it wasn't really about what he looked like, after being hit by a train. Well, kind of, but like, I just feel like if he had looked more messed up, maybe that would have taken away from it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
they're essentially looking at a body, like it's a human person,
Right.
and they're sort of gaining a little bit of humanity in that moment, looking at like, oh, that could have been me.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
the body was more messed up, maybe it would have taken away from that and sort of changed their perspective, like, oh, this isn't even a person, like I'm not looking at a person that just
Yeah.
died,
I
it's
think-
just this mangled mess.
To piggyback on that, if they make it more gruesome, I think it would make it more harder to look at, and they definitely wanted you to look at this kid. Like he
Right.
was just a kid who died by getting hit by a train. Like they want you to feel something for him. Like you know nothing about this kid, but like there's that moment of just, I guess, sort of like that gasp, like holy shit, like yeah, there's a dead kid right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they're getting ready for their sequel. They'd find out it wasn't the train that killed him. It was a murderer
Oh my god.
in Little Rock. But I was gonna say when mentioning the older kid scene, I think it kind of adds to the fact of like it's supposed to show that they'll do anything to get what they want in a sense.
Yeah.
Like to show Ace is like an asshole, and so he'll stab anyone if he wants to. So I
Ace-hole.
think that kind of, I think that kind of adds to that scene when they are confronting him, and then he you're kind of, when he takes out the knife, you kind of go, oh shit, he's gonna, stab him. But then the gun happens, so I think it kind of shows that he's a chicken. But anyways, I think that could have been it too, is to kind of establish who they are as a character, and instead of just the beginning and then boom, they're confronting them at the body,
Yeah.
Could have been my lack of care for them in general. That I was like,
What do you
Don't need
mean? They're so cool.
One thing I would change, to truly make it timeless, there's one word that they use a couple times, that I think they could have done without. This is definitely a movie of its time by using that word. I'm not going to say it, and keep in mind, I'm a person who says a lot of bad words. I think you guys might be able to guess what it is, but I think if they just
F-word.
replace it to something, like motherfucker, just like a general bad term, maybe, I don't know, I felt like, oh, they probably shouldn't be using that word at that moment. Just because we've definitely made progress since then.
Right.
mm-hmm.
For me, that's the only thing I would change. And let's move on to the final thing of favorite moments.
Blah, 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 blah. So
Looney
I
Tunes?
put for myself. There were a lot of good scenes of emotional supporting each other and that kind of thing, but I went with Gordy's story. I think the investment Chris has when he's like, come on, tell us a story, and the other guys are like, they really want to hear it. They encourage him to be like his actual true self instead of, oh, well, you're not like your brother. So I think it shows their friendship there, like, yeah, man, just tell us a story, but not scary. I think that's really cute, and I enjoyed that.
I have a couple. I really liked the scenes of Gordy with the gun. I like the first one being when they just shot the can and they were like, oh crap, they exploded. But just like how that sets up the last shot of him with the gun, and I just like that it's a symbolism of him growing up and being like, this is our thing, you're gonna leave now, I've got a gun, you've got a tiny knife, like, let's go.
Knife.
But yeah, I like how that kind of foreshadowed that a little bit. I also like the scene that Trevor mentioned before with him just being like, stop it, because it's so genuine. I also like the Chris's bull true thing. It's a funny thing to think about as well, but I also like what he was talking to Gordy about, and how he was telling him, like, God gave you something with all these stories, like you can come up with stories like crazy, and it just kind of shows you how supportive of Gordy he really is, because Gordy in that moment is like, nah, screw that, I'm not gonna be, with all these guys, all these losers and stuff. I don't want to be a writer, it's stupid. But he's like, nah, you gotta be a writer, like, you have a gift, use it.
Even going so far as to insult his parents, saying like they're dumb for letting him try to pass up on it, and like maybe he should be his dad.
Yeah, exactly. And then I have two that I thought were just really, really funny. Obviously, Chopper Sick Balls is hilarious, especially when you get just the narrative of him being like, now what I heard, like, what he said was, but what I heard, like, that true comedic scene right there. And then the last one was when they're just kind of shooting the shit in the junkyard, and they're like trying to decide who's gonna go get the food because everybody forgot to bring food, and it lands on Gordy, so he's like, fine or whatever. He gets up to go, and they're all making fun of him, and he's like, "Shut up!" And then they all join together against him, and you're like,
Yeah.
"I don't shut up. I grow up, and when I look at you, I throw up." Just because it's so in unison, like they all knew what to do when he said
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It's so great. I love it. They're so cute.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed a lot in this movie. It's hard to narrow it down, but I really did enjoy the relationships between the kids. Like I mentioned earlier, it just feels genuine. Like these kids, they just feel like real friends, and I think the movie and the narrative really does a really good job of portraying that. And then I also really enjoyed the relationship between Chris and Gordy. To me, that just, I don't know how you can express true friendship between two people more than their relationship. I thought it was just really well done altogether. I mean, Chris just was this supportive best friend who just never gave up on Gordy, and like I just really loved how much support he gave him throughout the film. And it was just really awesome how they could switch from like being, they would tease each other here and there, and they would kind of, be bullies to each other, like not in a mean way, but like in a, we're friends, so we're just fucking around with each other. But like, and then they switched to being super serious and super, upfront about their feelings and stuff. And it just overall, like, I just really enjoyed the relationships. I feel like that was my favorite part of this movie, is just the characters and their relationships.
Yeah, kind of going off of that, my favorite moments, I have three of them. First one is the story of Chris taking the milk money. And just like how Gordy, he like very quietly asked, like, "Did you take it?" And then Chris just bursting out like, "Yeah, I took it." It's just kind of, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like he's a Chambers, like that's what's expected of him. But then you learn like he tried to do the right thing by giving it back, and then he was betrayed by someone he trusted. I thought that was a really good scene. And then, like Hannah said, and like I brought up earlier, the "stop it" scene where he just whips his head around. He's like, "We're going on this. We're gonna continue. We're gonna find this body." And like as a narrator, like he kind of admitted that he would go alone if he had to. Like it was that important to him. But just the emotion of how he says "stop it," like it was so well done. And then on a more lighthearted note, when Vern is like, "Oh, gee, Gordy, like, couldn't you like get some like breakfast things?" And then Gordy comes out like this quip. He's like, "Well, a more experienced shopper could have gotten more with your 7 cents, Vern." That was such a good comeback right
I haven't
there.
found my pennies yet. There were so many holes under that deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He probably never found those pennies.
Probably.
No.
I think at the very end when he stoops to pick up that one penny, he's like, it's probably like a, "Okay, I'm starting over" type
Yeah.
of thing. All right, guys, that was Stand By Me.
Now sit by me.
Yeah. I really hope you guys saw it beforehand. If not, just stop watching this and go watch it. It's a really good movie.
It's
read
probably shorter
Or
than
read
this
it, yeah.
podcast, to be honest.
Yeah, it
The
is.
book is called
Yeah.
The Body.
Yeah, it's
So-
only an hour 39, I think.
It was 89 minutes long. So,
Hour and 29.
shorter than this podcast.
Hour 29, there you go. Even shorter than I thought.
It's
Yeah.
short, quick.
Go experience this story. And to give a little teaser of what's coming up, Gigi.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yes,
What's our next movie?
it's gonna be Big Fish.
Big Fish.
Big fish.
I wanted to do a Tim Burton movie. And I wanted to try to do one that we didn't see, or that you guys haven't seen.
I saw it.
Yeah,
It's what's
because I
expected
made
of
you.
Gigi.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, yeah. Hopefully it's as good as I remember it.
All right, everybody, go take care of yourself,
Lollipop.
and we'll talk to you next time.
Yeah.
Chopper.
Bye.
Sick balls.
Mm.
Later.